I'm Rick Gillespie Mobley, and I'd like to share with you one of my stories. When I was growing up as a teenager, my life I don't think was that different from most teens. I was excited about three things. I was excited about making money, I was excited about being popular, and I was excited about girls. Those were the things that really were getting me going when I was a teenager, especially once I got to be around 15, 16, 17 years of age. Well, one of the things that I really enjoyed doing was playing football. And I thought that football could be my ticket to a college scholarship. And then a funny thing happened. It wasn't so funny at the time. When I was in 11th grade, I can remember going up to catch a pass and getting hit pretty hard in my side. And I went to the hospital and the doctor had told me, he says, you took a pretty strong shock to your spleen. Fortunately, you were in really, really good shape, so it's not going to bother you that much. And so I think I missed maybe one game my junior year and went on and played and had a pretty good year for the rest of the season. Well, come my senior year, some things had changed in my life. Some things had changed in my family's life. My grandmother had started going to church. And for the first time, she talked about Jesus as though Jesus was really somebody real. And the change in her lifestyle was just dramatic that I just had to take notice of it. So I'm 17 years old and I'm hearing this stuff about Jesus. And I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe since I really need to have a good year, my senior year playing football, maybe if I get some of this Jesus stuff, Jesus will watch over me. I'll have a great season and who knows where it will go from there. So I kind of made this bargain with God. I'm like, okay, God, here's what the plan is. I'm going to start going to church. I'm going to put money in church. You are going to watch over me on the football field so that I can get my college scholarship and we'll see what happens from there. So I did. I started going to church. I went to Sunday school. I went to Bible study. I mean, I was all in. And then one day when they had asked if anybody wanted to give their life to Christ, I went down and gave my life to Christ. And I just couldn't wait for the football season to start. So when the football season started, I can remember the third game of the season, we were playing a team called Sayre in Pennsylvania. And I was a defensive back. And I remember being on the field and they ran a sweep to my right. And I came up from my position and I hit the running back. Bam! We hit each other and into the play. But then I remembered seeing some stars after I had made that tackle. And then the next thing I remembered was I was on the bench and I looked over at the scoreboard and they were ahead by 1 point. And I asked, well, when did they score? And my friend looked at me kind of funny and he's like, what do you mean, when did they score? You blocked the extra point. And I said, what? I did? And he says, yeah, you blocked the extra point. Well, at this point, I realized that something was wrong because I stayed on the bench. And when we went in at halftime, the coach wasn't going to let me go back into the game. Apparently, after they took me off the field or I came off the field or something, people were asking me questions and I wasn't making a whole lot of sense. But anyways, the coach says, look, you can't go back in the game. Tomorrow morning, I want you to go to a hospital, just get some x-rays, make sure everything is okay. Now, this is back in 1973, and we're in a small town in upstate New York called Hornell. So I go to the doctors pretty much on my own, and I go to the hospital, and I tell them what my coach has said, and they look at me, and they say, okay, and they do some tests, and they're just taking forever. And I'm like thinking, I got to get out of this place. So I finally decide, well, whatever the results are, they're going to be the results. Let me get out of here. And so I headed out the door. And the next thing I know, I hear this nurse saying, are you Ricky Mobley? Are you Ricky Mobley? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, sit down. She has this wheelchair. And she's like, sit down. The doctor wants you to get in the bed right away. And I'm like thinking, this is a dream. This cannot be real. The next thing I know, I'm in a wheelchair and I'm being escorted down the hall. And then they take me into this room. It seemed like that room just felt so cold. I sat there on the bed and I'm waiting for the doctor to come in. And the only thing I want to know is, how many games am I going to miss? Because there were still 7 games left in the season. And I needed these games to get a college scholarship. So the doctor finally comes in and he sits down and he talks to me and he says, well, you know, son, you hurt yourself pretty badly in that game. And I'm thinking inside, how many games am I going to miss? He says, you actually cracked a couple of bones in your neck while you were playing. And he says, if you had stayed in that game and you had taken one more hit, there's a possibility it could have sliced your spinal cord and you would be paralyzed from the neck down. And I'm thinking to myself, just tell me, how many games am I going to miss? And he says, I hate to tell you this, but you'll never be able to play football again. And when he said that, my world just collapsed. Football at that point in my life as a 17-year-old was everything. It was my identity. It was my ticket to fame. It was my ticket to everything, it seemed like, in my life. And when he said that, it just did not seem real. And so when he left that room, I started crying. I got out of that bed, I got on my knees, and I said, God, how could you let this happen to me? I was going to church. I was even putting money in church. How could this happen to me? And it was as though God spoke just as clearly to me as I'm speaking to you. And I heard a voice say, you weren't doing that for me. You were doing that for you. And I thought about it for a moment. And I said, oh yeah, that's right. And so right then and there, in that cold hospital room, I gave my heart to Jesus Christ. And this time I gave it to him not because of something I was going to get, but because he was worthy as the Son of God. And I recognized I needed a Savior in my life. I invited Christ in that day, and I've never regretted since. And all the doors that God opened for me were unbelievable, including the chance to play football all over again. But that's another story. I thank you for listening to this one. I'm Rick Gillespie Mobley. Jesus is first in my life.